Morning, everybody. Welcome to the CO visit. Colin Zafke here, and always with my trusty coffee. For many years, Watchtower Bible and Tract Society has been very critical of Christendom's religions, as they call it. This is not something new. This has been going on for past 70 plus years in their talks and conventions and any number of Watchtower and Awake articles. And especially, according to what they said, Christendom being abandoned, churches losing members, the pews are empty. Just by way of example, I want to read some titles for you. These are just the titles, just the names of the Watchtower and Awake magazines. In no particular order, no particular numerical order of the year either, just random ones. And of course, this is only a small representation of all of the articles. Let's see here. Watchtower, 1955. Why church pews are empty. Awake, 1990. The Catholic Church in Spain, the contradictions. Awake, 1971. Germany's churches in trouble. Awake, 1996. Why is the church losing influence? Awake, 1971. The gulf between the people and the churches. Awake, 1981. Why are people leaving the Church of Sweden? Awake, 1982. Closing churches in Italy. Awake, 1975. The British churches in crisis. Watchtower, 1971. Changing attitudes towards the churches. Awake, 1980. Are Christendom's churches losing their grip? This was a recurring theme over and over and over again during the 50s, 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, 2010s. But lo and behold, a change came. New light. What I would like to do is invite all of the active Jehovah's Witnesses that may be watching this, and the ones that have commented on my channel, and the ones that are still regurgitating Watchtower information without doing their own independent research, because this is yet again one more addition to the video I made about let's talk about truth. Here's one more truth. That's not truth anymore. What was preached as fact and taught in the congregations as irrefutable from Jehovah, the evidence is there. Look at the statistics. As of the annual meeting of the governing body of Watchtower in 2024, it no longer is. It's now old light. So I want to invite all of those active Jehovah's Witnesses and even PMOs, anybody that's having doubts or is having that slow burn going out of the organization. This is just one more piece of evidence of the man-made religious organization making things up as they go They go with something until they can't anymore. They go with something until it's either proven false or simply, in this case, time runs out. What I want to invite you to do, my Jehovah's Witness friends, is invite all of you to watch the 2024 annual meeting of Jehovah's Witnesses on your own website. Go to jw.org and watch it. And I want you to pay close attention, particularly to the anointed king, Jeffrey Jackson's talk. Because Jeffrey Jackson, with his new beard, touches on this topic. So he talks about the new light regarding particularly the Great Tribulation. That's what he talks about. And then this comes into it. They have a new understanding of the Great Tribulation. And the fact that he admits now that churches of Christendom, far from being abandoned and losing their grip, are actually growing. They're full. They're teeming with people. So its grip on the people isn't as weak as they thought. Maybe they've lost some political power. Maybe they've lost some control over countries like they used to have thousands of years ago, but their grip on the people is just as strong as it ever was. And it's interesting, being where I live, in Honduras, Central America, Jeffrey Jackson cites Hispanic countries as an example. And he finally says something that would be critical thinking, which Jehovah's Witnesses never do. And he says, if one looks at other continents, such as Africa and Spanish-speaking countries, Hispanic countries, Central South America, churches are full. I could have told everybody that years ago. And you know what, guys? Not just here. The United States as well. Churches in the United States are doing just fine. They're full. Protestant churches, evangelical churches especially, the Pentecostal movement, all of that, the mega churches, they're full to the brink. All Watchtower ever cited was Europe. That's it. Europe. So, as always, they take limited information from a specific area or a specific region, just like they single out individual scriptures, and then they build a whole doctrine on that, or a belief system. You see, guys, Watchtower since the 1950s has been practicing classic disinformation. In other words, let's just call it what it is: lying. Yes, if you look at churches in Europe, absolutely, that's true. Absolutely. Church attendance has gone down. They talked about churches in Italy closing, but how ironic. Because we could argue as well, if you want to talk about the rafter in your eye and the straw in your brother's eye, talking about attendance going down, member numbers going down, churches closing, you don't have to look beyond the Christian congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. They've been closing since 2012 forward. They've been closing and consolidating congregations and kingdom halls all over the world. When I was an active witness, and in, I would say, the organization's heyday in the 90s, there were over 9 million members. As of 2024, there's 8 8.5, 8.6 million. They've lost nearly or over 1 million people, members. It's harder to get very accurate statistics now because the only statistics we can get subjectively are from the Watchtower itself. We don't have the yearbooks anymore, but even so, that information is manipulated by them. So we don't know with 100% accuracy how many people there are. But it is going down. It's gone down significantly. So for a religion that to begin with only has, 8 or, well, back then 9 million people, to lose 1 million members, that's catastrophic. But the interesting part is, my brothers and sisters, is that Jeffrey Jackson admitted something that you wouldn't know unless you either went to observe other churches or you leave the United States. The first one will never happen because Jehovah's Witnesses are so indoctrinated to never go to other churches. You stay away from that. So you're never going to observe what other church worships are like. But if you do, in the United States, I guarantee you're going to see churches alive and very well. They have a very established membership and culture and everything. Far from pews being empty. And that's the other thing. They only concentrated mainly on one church, the Catholic Church. There are over 30,000 Christian denominations in the world. 30,000. Very selective information. They're giving you, just a kind of a tunnel vision of one little statistic, and yet there's this whole picture out there. The other thing I mentioned was leaving the United States, which again, most people aren't going to do either. But as soon as I got to Honduras, this was one thing that impressed me, how full the churches were. And people here are very active religiously. 92% of Honduras population, and this is independent research, guys. This is not what Watchtower says. Give you some information here that you might find interesting. Honduras, right now in 2024, has 10 million inhabitants. The population of Honduras is 10 million. A little bit over, actually. It's about 10.5. We're just going to say 10 million. It's easier. We like those round numbers, and for the fractions, it's a lot easier. The metric system. 10 million people. 92% of Honduras population, 92%, is believing. They believe in God, whether that be Catholic or Christian, but they believe in Jesus. They believe in God. Okay? In whatever form that might be as far as their worship goes. 45% of the population, which represents 4.5 million people, are Catholic. 4.5 million people are Catholic, practicing. 40%, which represents 4 million, are evangelic. And here in Honduras, as far as evangelical churches, you basically have the Adventist church, you have the Baptist church, and you have the Pentecostal. That's it. That's it. And then, so what does that give us? That gives us 85%. The rest are little fractions. You have a small percentage that's an Islamic community, a small percentage that is Jewish, small percentage Mormon, Jehovah's Witnesses, atheist, all these other little fractions. How many of that population, of the 10 million people, are Jehovah's Witnesses here in Honduras? 22,000. There are 22,000 Jehovah's Witnesses right now in Honduras. Back when I was a witness, an active witness, during that time from 2003 onward, there was consistently 15,000 witnesses at that time. So they've only grown about 6,000 or 7,000 in the past 20 plus years. Not much growth. Not much growth at all. Very slow. You can see how a narrative can be spun. I want to quote my friend JT from the XJW Critical Thinker, whose phrase that he coined hits the nail right on the head. Numbers don't lie, but you can lie with numbers. And so what does this do? Have you noticed, brothers and sisters, there's a common thread through all of the changes that have happened since the early 2000s. Starting with, since the generation of 1914 all died, and then they had to replace that doctrine with the overlapping generation. That was the first one. What did that do? They started changing from what they came off of in the 90s with this urgency because these brothers and sisters from 1914 were almost gone, and that meant the tribulation was at any moment going to start. Well, since they all died and nothing happened, they had to change. So they had new light, which was the overlapping generation, and with that, the urgency disappeared. And since then, every change that has happened in the organization has consistently lowered more and more and more and more the urgency. It's become less and less and less until now there is none. After that, what happened? Consolidating congregations, selling kingdom halls, and then we had more recently, they stopped counting time. No more of that. And the cart witnessing, everything's becoming digital now. And with that, and then we have now this new light from Jeffrey Jackson, where in the annual meeting last year in 2023, they dropped the bombshell new light that you can repent even during the Great Tribulation. If you're outside of the organization right now, if you're disfellowshipped or disassociated or in any other quality or just inactive, and you see the Great Tribulation start, and you start seeing things go down, and they start getting rid of religion, and you realized that the witnesses were right, you can go back to the congregation, you can admit you were wrong, you can ask them to forgive you, and they will have to accept you back lovingly, with open arms, as the prodigal son, right? And then they also said that people from the flood of Noah's day and Sodom and Gomorrah will also be resurrected. So if those people are going to be resurrected, anybody can be. Anybody can repent and come back. Because I don't think there's anybody that did anything worse than any of those people. Not by a long shot. No more urgency. And what more did King Jackson say? Well, he said that Jehovah will convince world governments to give their power over to the UN, their political power, over to the UN. So there's absolutely no way to predict how or when that's going to happen. There will be absolutely no indication whatsoever of how or when or why the governments are going to do that, because it's Jehovah that will put it in their hearts. So again, that destroys any amount of urgency. And with all of these changes that they made now with this new light, what it does is it buys them more and more and more and more time. so that now they don't have to be like going back and say, oh, well, this happened and we got to change now. They can just continue on and continue on. And you know what? This leads us up to what I'm going to talk about in the next video. Because you know what just happened? The construction permit has been approved. Construction can begin on the Ramapo Media Facility in Ramapo, New York. A project that approximately is between $200 and $300 million. So the Watchtower Society needs more time. Far from preaching with urgency and not investing in this world that is passing away, Watchtower is going full force, investing in real estate, investing in land, investing in construction of this gigantic facility, which I'll talk about with more details in the next video. Some food for thought for today. Open your eyes, open your mind, research outside of Watchtower literature and what's on jw.org. Thanks for watching. Hit the like and subscribe button. Join us here at the CO visit. Won't cost you a thing. And we'll see you on the next one.